Hello and welcome to this special AirTime interview. My name is Michael Jonga, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Pascal Picano, who recently became a member of the board of directors of Avia Solution Group. Now, Avia Solution Group is recognized as the largest ACMI capacity provider in the world, and Pascal joins during a time where the group is expanding its assets and capacity portfolio, as well as entering new markets and establishing new business lines. Now, Pascal has a long-standing history in the industry, building financing for aviation businesses. He specializes in building equity, capital, and investments towards aircraft acquisition, leasing, financial modeling, as well as the trade of aircraft and aircraft engines. Pascal joins us now in the AeroTime studio to discuss more. So, Pascal, welcome to the AeroTime studio.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and just reading into your broad experience in the industry. You've worked with a multitude of companies, ranging from airlines to aviation and aerospace and manufacturers as well, and in particular investment firms and asset management firms as well. Now, someplace where we can start off is, how did you come to know about Avia Solutions Group, and what ultimately drove your decision to join and become a member of this board?
I got to know about Aviation Solutions through its airlines. I first dealt with Avion Express at the beginning of Avion Express, leasing A320s to Avion Express, and then SmartLynx, buying a plane from an airline in China and transferring that plane to SmartLynx, swapping engines in the middle of that transfer, which had to do a lot with asset management, which is a critical part of being in aviation. And I had met Gedimidas a long time ago in London at a dinner, and we always remain in contact with each other. I was in touch with Small Planet when Small Planet was also a part of Avia Solutions, and the CEO of that company, and we had done a lot of trades together. Then with the extension of Small Planet in Germany, same story. We had done trades together, and I've always been attracted by the entrepreneurship of Avia Solution, of the management of Avia Solution, and the people of Avia Solution, growing the business of flexible aviation services to multitude of jurisdiction, multitude of different types of airlines, because it's just as much the jurisdiction, breadth, but also the types of the airlines, the types of the planes. So you're dealing in many dimensions, and that to me is even more exciting.
Mm. And now looking at that, you're in the group and you're looking from the inside out. Has your perspective changed about the group?
It's actually more exciting, and I'm not saying this because I'm joined, but I'm saying this because it's true. What I could see from the outside, I'm finding it to be correct now that I see from the inside, and to be able to work with great people that have a intellectually stimulating business case, that work with multiple of culture, multiple of challenges, and that are able to find the resources to get to the solution they need. That is extraordinary, and that makes me a very happy person right now.
Very nice to hear. Now, I want to touch on your career. You've in some of the work that you've done with the multitude of companies that you worked with. You've held top marketing roles with these companies as well, in segments of the industry that could be considered dominated by financiers, by asset management, by investment as well. From your perspective, can you tell us what is the goal of the marketing function in this environment of the industry?
The ultimate goal is to make money. All right. Then how you make money is what you need to work on. You need to find the people, and that's very important. You need to find the right product, and the right product may be the right product for a certain time. So then you need to be able to adjust your product and sometimes the people in order to keep up with what the market needs, what the market is ready to pay for. And then within the market, you have different segments of return on investments. Some will have really thin, some will have more healthy, Some will be more risky, some will be less. So in that function, you need to be able to assess the quality of your proposition, the time value of your proposition, and who is this proposition most attractive to. And hopefully, this is the one that makes money for you. That's been the essence of the work I have done as a marketeer, as a trader, as a salesperson, as someone that worked in teams to make large investments, as well as small ones. They generally demand the same amount of time. But they are equally stimulating and equally interesting.
Looking, you mentioned about the quality of your proposition, and looking at your role again in marketing, staying on your career, how does marketing shape the conversation, especially in financially driven industries such as aircraft leasing or aircraft acquisition?
That's an interesting question. Thank you. It's relatively easy to understand how Excel works, to do financial projections on Excel. What is key is to understand what you're modeling, what is the value proposition of what you're modeling, and what is the life cycle of what you're modeling. Because putting a number on a spreadsheet, relatively simple. Understanding those numbers, more complicated. And extracting the value you need from those numbers, that's where you find value. When you know this, then you're in a better shape to go and market that value, to sell that value. It's easier for you to target who to approach. So a lot of my work, and for some decades now, has been to be more comfortable with what I was doing because I was acquiring so much knowledge. I was working on the substance. And through that substance, I was able to use that substance for creating value for my employers.
So I want to take it back to something you mentioned earlier, where you said that how you came to know Avia Solution Group was through its airlines. So you mentioned SmartLinks Airlines and Avion Express as well. And when you take a look at the group today, it's expanding. It's expanding to new markets, establishing new business lines. How important is that nowadays for a group, a corporation, or a company to be involved in several different business lines?
Well, it's critical. It's not just several business lines. It's also to have to expand on the geographical aspect of your business, because several business lines means some of them will work well this year, but a lot of factors may play against them next year, and some other businesses will do well next year that didn't do well the previous year. So it's de-risking the business to start with. The other is to give you more opportunities to grow, because when you have more business lines, you get access to just more transactions, more potential business that you can actually build, create, adjust, acquire, grow. And it's absolutely necessary. If you want to have a strong business, to have a business that has been diversified. And that's absolutely what ASG has been doing. It's been diversifying the type of airlines that it owns, the type of medicine services that it owns, the type of other services that it owns and develops. And within the airline, there's a lot of development. And there's, within those silos, a lot of diversity too. The types of planes, the generation of the planes, the size of the planes. So that brings a strong diversity, and that brings a lot of opportunities.
Now, you mentioned diversification, especially with the different opportunities and transactions, as you mentioned before. Now, what synergies between the different business lines, factoring in diversification, what synergies can you see?
See, it's good in some cases to be very focused on operating narrow-body planes. Okay. It's also good sometimes to take opportunities at whatever is a good deal to acquire into your fleet, because you know it's quite safe. You'll be able to develop your business from it. So you need to be agile, and the diversity of thought process brings you diversity of operation, and you can seize opportunities. You can either focus or diversify, take a bit of risk or not, but you can only do this when you're in control of your business with good people and with the right assets. So having people that are focused on different airlines brings that concentration of purpose, and through that, they find the right businesses. But as a group, you have access to different pockets of people, assets, jurisdictions, and that brings opportunities.
I think that segues very nicely into my next question, which is what are you going to be focusing on during your tenure in the group?
So I was tasked to support the airlines and to work with the airlines also on building some asset management skills. I'm also supporting the group with its work with insurance companies, and that is already quite a bit. And it's been quite a lot of work already to adjust to the speed because the group is going so fast. There's so much happening. It's keeping me up to and interested to get up to speed so I can work as fast as everybody else.
Now, taking a look at so much happening, you mentioned that there's so much happening, especially in the industry. Looking at environmental, social, and governance, and in particular sustainability, these have really taken center stage in the industry. We see now that airlines commercially are committing a lot more to, for example, sustainable aviation fuel, to acquiring more SAF and its utilization as well. Now, looking at that, are you already seeing an impact, for example, in the leasing and aircraft industry, considering ESG and sustainability?
SAF is great, but the production of SAF is limited. And until there's more production, the cost of SAF is relatively higher than the cost of Jet A1 fuel. So as we'll see more SAF production, hopefully there will be a decrease in the cost, and then everybody can use it, and that's great news. But before SAF, and there is a discussion that is not prevalent in the dialogue. Do you want to invest in a new plane all the time, making planes' life grow short from 25 years to 20 years to 18 to 12, or maybe less, I don't know. Which means limited reinvestment through maintenance into the asset. And sure, you'll get new generation planes all the time, but at what cost? Are you going to keep producing planes so that irrespective of the cost of production, irrespective of the investments that are already in place to perform maintenance on aircraft, and those maintenance, they bring down the consumption of fuel. They bring down also a lot of the operational costs. The planes are upgraded regularly, so they fly better, farther, and they cost less on maintenance side too, over time. Although there is a counter argument that sure, because over time they age, then they cost more into maintenance. That's true too. The two are not incompatible. But by operating planes from a flexible service company like Avia Solution Group Airlines, you actually are able to, most airlines are able to reduce their overheads, reduce the fleet, reduce the number of the staff that they need on a full-time basis. But then there's planes that come into the peak times and that follow traffic all over the globe, which is what ESG is bringing to the world. Having AOCs in Northern Hemisphere and soon in the Southern Hemisphere, where you can actually have planes operating during the summertime in the Northern Hemisphere to bring more capacity to that market, and using those planes in the South during the Northern Hemisphere winter, which is the summer in the South. So now you have a fleet of 8 to 10% of the planes in the world that could travel back and forth. That brings flexibility, but also requires less planes to be manufactured. That requires flexibility with the crew that goes on those planes. That requires a lot of flexibility, but frankly, I think it's really compatible with ESG to have a greater use of ACMI by airlines in the north and the south.
Mm-hmm. Looking at, still on this topic of ESG and sustainability, What's your assessment of the communication around it, especially in the ACMI industry?
There's limited communication about it. And it's generally not it's not yet a communication that, it's a B2B communication. It's not yet communication towards the passengers, the consumers. It's hard to define how much communication there is really. But it's also, on the same token, there might not be a need to have that much communication because you deal with airlines that already know what ACMI is, they already know how it works. Everybody in the business is well sophisticated enough to understand what it means and how it happens. So the need for communication or for improved acceptance is more with the aviation authorities. A lot of these aviation authorities around the world are prohibiting ACMI. And this comes at a cost of their own economies. When you put a limit, such as 5 years or 10 years, for an aircraft to come into your country and be registered in your country, and you make it the law that you can only have planes registered in your country to be based in your country and operate with your pilots and with your colors, then a lot of players, a lot of investors in your country do not have the means to invest in those planes. So you are focusing all the energy onto one or two players, generally a state-owned company. But the free market doesn't happen anymore. If you start opening up those age limits to import planes, and you start opening up the ability of your carriers to secure planes from outside players for a temporary season, to start investing in aviation, test, experiment, and then develop, you actually create more activity for your business, for your country, for your people. And that's what ASG is bringing to the world.
Now, something that might also be on the same tangent here. We've seen recently and over the last couple of years a lot of attention and developments towards new propulsion technologies. We've heard the mention of hydrogen-powered aircraft being able to operate within the next decade or so. How do you see this impacting the ACMI industry or leasing industry, for example?
So it creates new market for the leasing industry as long as the product works and it's adopted by the airlines. There's maintenance set up and everything works well. The group is already investing in those new generation planes. Smartlinks has MAX 8 in its fleet. It will grow MAX 8 planes into its fleet. Could be that some airlines in the future will operate A320neos or A321neos. There's a cost to all of these investments, and there's a benefit to all these investments. At this stage, there's already a lot of cost, a lot of investments into the neos and the maxes. Expecting that over the next 10 years, there will be hydrogen propulsion, and that planes will have to be retrofitted or planes will have to work differently. That's an expensive proposition, I say. But in the meantime, the group is adjusting to new technology planes and will be adjusting as fast as other airlines are adjusting their planes so that the group keeps up with the generation of planes that will be flown, and the group remains in business with all these airlines that need to have that compatibility within the fleet.
Looking at the group, also still on the same topic, looking at the group and the industry in general, are they prepared for a transition to these type of technologies for aircraft?
Don't know if it's a question of preparedness. It's a question of contract with maintenance organizations that provide the service of maintaining those assets. And they are already there. Now, all these organizations are maturing their services. So it's also a question of, are the manufacturers producing enough to support these new generation planes? Components, spare parts, which are key to keeping those planes in the air. But it's not about the people. The people, they are qualified, super experimented individuals that know how to adjust and adapt, and they've been showing this all this time. So it's I I believe the group is ready to have whatever generation of planes into its fleet. And the sophistication comes when you manage the maintenance, when you manage the operations. The group knows how to do this.
Also looking at new technologies coming in, we've seen a lot of developments with urban air mobility or eVTOL aircraft, and a lot of investment as well going into developing that. How soon do you think how soon till we see eVTOL transportation enter the market commercially?
I don't know. I wish I knew that. It's actually really exciting. You won't need that too much in Vilnius, I suppose. The airport is close enough to the city, especially with our headquarters that are within walking distance to the airport. I believe some of those eVTOL are being certified now. They're in the process. And I would not be surprised if over the next couple of years you'll start seeing little air taxis and with those electric eVTOL. The question is not so much if when, it's also will you have a pilot on board or not? And that is going to be another tricky question.
Maybe just expanding our conversation a little bit here. What are some of the most interesting trends that you see in the industry today? Maybe in ACMI and in leasing as well.
The trends I see in ACMI is that it used to be mostly Europe, a little bit Canada, a little bit some countries in Southeast Asia. But at this stage, it's growing. It's expanding. And it's expanding. One of the figures that our chairman likes to, Guilherme Azimelis likes to present, is that airlines in Western Europe have agreed with their unions that up to 8% of the flights will be handled possibly by ACMI providers. And that gives an enormous amount of opportunity within Europe. But it would have repercussions everywhere. When airlines outside of Europe see the benefit of ACMI, they will want ACMI. And that creates more opportunities for the group as it expands and provides services everywhere. There's already over 60 airlines that are serviced by the group on ACMI on a yearly basis. That's quite a big accomplishment. And it's just going to grow.
And are there any trends, maybe outside of Europe, or any trends that people aren't noticing yet that you might have caught on to?
There's something that, new technologies takes time to adopt. Everybody wished that it would be plug and play. It's not like that. So the adoption and the operation of new technology requires a lot of time, a lot of investment. While airlines perform that investment, they still have ESG airlines who support them during that transition and give them the flexibility that they need so they don't double, triple their investments while they are adopting these new technologies. And I think that this is an aspect of the industry that is there's not enough communication about this. Why do airlines want new technologies? Because it makes economic sense. When does it make economic sense? How long does it take before it makes economic sense? That's another interesting question. And if you have flexibility brought to you by ACMI companies like Avia Solution Group, then it makes it less painful. It gives you the agility that you need to fix these difficult moments when you adopt new technologies.
Maybe to close us off here, what are you most looking forward to, especially in your time in Avia Solutions Group?
I'm actually very happy at this stage, and there's nothing special that I have put my finger on and say this is what I want. I've met extraordinary people. I've had fantastic conversations, and I really enjoyed the prospect of working with ESG and to be participating in that growth of ESG.
Well, Pascal, thank you so much for joining us here in the AeroTime studio. That brings us to the end of our interview. But I want to say thank you for sharing so much about your career, your insights as well into ACMI and the entire industry. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
Too.
And that brings us to the end of this AeroTime interview, but stay tuned for more exciting content coming soon. Thank you for joining us. My name is Michael Jonga, and you've been watching AeroTime. Goodbye.